Hi, and welcome to another episode of Growing Up. Today, we will be discussing the unfortunate risk of pregnancy loss in the form of miscarriage and/or stillbirth. But first, Bespoke Janae. Now, you found out you are pregnant, but celebrating and sharing the news with others feels a bit premature because the first few weeks of pregnancy is a vulnerable one. I always remember the milestone to be 13 weeks. But then there's also a possibility of stillbirth that creeps up later on in pregnancy. Now, I had a miscarriage in September 2020. At about 8 weeks, we could not detect a heartbeat. That was the saddest moment of my life, and also consecutively the saddest 4 months thereafter. I remember only thinking, what is wrong with me? In a genuine way, like trying to understand what is wrong with me so that I can see if I can fix it. A family member of mine had miscarriage and stillbirth and ultimately had trouble conceiving. It made me think, is that what is happening to me? Could this be genetic? At that stage, a lot of my friends and acquaintances were also pregnant. They were all having babies. And watching them and watching their pregnancy journey, it just made me jealous and envious. I even deleted myself from social media. I just couldn't. Whenever I would see a post, I would just break down. So yay, now I'm pregnant again. But for how long? And that is exactly why I started this blog, as a means to document my experience, educate myself some more. And by sharing it with others, it's a means for me to download everything from my overthinking brain so that I can just move on and not overthink so much. So let's discuss what I learned the past few weeks. A miscarriage is when the developing embryo or fetus dies in the womb of natural causes or due to exposure to substances. Now, if it happens within the first trimester, i.e. within the first 13 weeks of pregnancy, it's called an early miscarriage. If it happens in the second trimester, it's called a late miscarriage. So what are the causes of miscarriage? Well, the first cause is chemical pregnancy. And this is when the fertilized egg fails to implant properly in the womb lining, or it does not survive in the uterus. This type of miscarriage occurs very early in pregnancy, around 5 weeks, and it happens before we can detect the fetal heartbeat on an ultrasound. The second cause, which is the most common one for miscarriage, is chromosomal abnormalities. And they are detected in 50 to 85% of miscarried pregnancies. A normal fertilized egg has 23 pairs of chromosomes. And with that 23 pairs of chromosomes, it is then equipped to develop into a healthy embryo, which in turn develop into a fetus as the pregnancy progresses. Now, if an embryo has more or fewer than 23 pairs of chromosomes, this is a chromosomal abnormality. And having this abnormality makes the fertilized egg very vulnerable to miscarriage, either during its embryo stage or when it develops into a fetus. The third cause, which is also a common problem, is having a double uterus, incompetent cervix that can't retain the pregnancy. The fourth one is hormonal causes. This includes any abnormalities with the corpus luteum. So remember in the previous video, we discussed the function of the corpus luteum. So if the corpus luteum doesn't release enough progesterone, it can cause a miscarriage. Illness and infections. And these can be vaginal infections, sexually transmitted diseases, eating undercooked meat, and any condition that goes hand in hand with severe fever can cause a miscarriage. Environmental and lifestyle factors, which include smoking, exposing yourself to secondhand smoking, exposing yourself to certain metals that you can find in certain fish. According to a study by Dublé and Benson in 1995, the chance of a first trimester miscarriage varies by fetal heart rate. The lower the heart rate, the higher the risk. A study led by Anne-Marie Anderson shows that being older increases the likelihood of miscarrying in both the first and the second trimester. With age, the performance of your ovaries decline, meaning that the quality of the eggs that it produces is not the same as it was when you were younger. Studies also show that your risk of having chromosomal abnormalities within pregnancy increases exponentially after 35 years old. There was another study done in 2002 done by Elise and Patrick, and that study showed that there is a clear effect of maternal age and paternal age on the risk of miscarriage, with 4 distinct trends. If the woman was 20 to 29 years old, the risk of miscarriage was not significantly high, whatever the age of the man. If the woman was 30 to 34 years old, the risk of miscarriage was higher if the man was older than 40 years. And then if the woman was older than 35 years old, the risk of miscarriage increased regardless of the age of the man, which means I can get myself a Ben 10, but I will still carry the miscarriage risk. Fourthly, if the woman was older than 35 years old and the man was older than 40 years old, the risk of miscarriage was substantially higher. Even though the man's age does play a role, ultimately, when it comes to miscarriage, the woman's fertility and vitality age weighs more. I was hoping that after saying all of this, I will be able to spin it into some type of positive, but I'm struggling. It's one app that I saw, and when I did this, it made me feel better. So I want to show it to you guys too, and maybe it will make you feel better too. I would check my stats. I'm 35 years old. I had 1 miscarriage and I had 1 live birth. My miscarriage probability. So when it starts off, I am at 34%, and it decreases every week. And then in about 20 weeks, it's 0.1%. If I was a younger person for the first time conceiving, it will start at 33%. So it does lower, the risk does lower, but not significantly. It's about the same. So if I'm older, trying to conceive, the probability of me having a miscarriage will be high as I start off the term. But at 10 weeks, it would be 6.1%, which is not the 2% that you would have had if you were 25 years old. But it is encouraging to see that it does decrease. And by 20 weeks, your risk is the same as that of somebody who is 25 years old. See part 2, where we will discuss the risk of stillbirth.